Now this new stuff has come up, which I wasn't unaware of, and I wrote to Mr. Boissonnault again yesterday, and I said, I am concerned about these things now.
Ethics Commissioner thinks Randy lied.
I guess the first concern that I have is I'm quite astonished of the commentary from my colleague Ms. Khalid in terms of her interpretation of a demand for documents as saw fit by a majority of members of Parliament. And as you will agree with me, I'm sure, Mr. Commissioner, that Parliament is supreme. Committees are supreme, and we can just about order anything we want unfettered.
Absolutely.
In fact, the House of Commons top lawyer basically affirmed that position, that documentation needed to be produced to get to the bottom of yet another scandal by this corrupted Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. So perhaps Ms. Khalid needs to be informed that simply obtaining documents and forwarding those documents to the RCMP is not and never would be seen to be interference. It aids in their investigation. She is somehow suggesting, wrongly and deliberately wrongly, that by asking and furnishing documents to the RCMP, we are directing an outcome, which you know, Commissioner, is completely ridiculous. The RCMP are completely independent and are unfettered in their decision to lay charges or not. You'd agree with that?
Yeah.
Regardless of what Parliament said, regardless of what Justin Trudeau may have said, they have that final discretion. So Ms. Khalid needs to be educated on the powers that the RCMP actually have. But a broader concern.
Wonder how Khalid's taken that sitting in her office at home.
Probably not too well.
She's probably seething. She's probably mouthing.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't mouth at Barrett, obscenities again.
Well, I don't know. She would mouth anything at Brock, because Brock could reach through that camera and Brock her.
And give her what for. Yeah.
Pull her in and give her a good talking to.
Give her a scolding, yeah.
So, anyway, I love it. I love it when he talks to Khalid like she's a child, because if you want to behave like a child, you're going to get treated like a child.
Well, and that's just exactly it. I mean, you guys saw our live stream yesterday. She was just
incorrigible.
Yeah, just awful. And you know what? She's regularly like that. And it's an embarrassment. If I lived in Mississauga, Erin Mills, and she was my MP, I'd be writing a strongly worded letter to say, you know what? You're an embarrassment.
I have is this. Really, why are you here, Commissioner? As much as I enjoy listening to you and listening to your counsel, you were selected and you were chosen to come here by the Liberal Party. And right out of the gate, they asked you questions about your mandate as if they didn't even know why you were here. As we well know, and you can confirm, Commissioner, there's at least a dozen other investigations into this Arrive scam scandal, including the Auditor General and the RCMP and numerous colleagues of your level, various commissioners, actually examining this scandal. Why weren't they here today? But they chose you. You made it clear to this committee earlier this year that you have no mandate with respect to the Arrive scam, do you?
I don't. And
don't.
My opening statement today made that absolutely clear.
Abundantly clear. So this is now twice you've made it clear you have no mandate, yet the Liberals wasted this committee time and wasted your time, sir, from doing the good work that you are obviously doing throughout the year. How much time do I have?
Mr. Brock, just to hold, I want to just push you back in your lane. The witness is here, the invitation of the full committee. So I appreciate you're welcome to raise his relevance, but he is a committee witness. So just a nudge back in if you could on that. There are no
Certainly.
Yeah, I appreciate you've got
Certainly.
you've got a minute 45 left.
Okay, so let's get to your report, the Verschuren report. We've heard from my colleague, Mr. Perkins, that she somehow benefited from the decision-making that she either made or abstained on voting but not recusing herself, upwards to $10 million. You found her guilty of breaching two aspects of the Act. I want to know, and I'm sure Canadians watching this want to know, what is the penalty for her?
Penalty for her is, as the Act provides right now, basically exposure.
Sorry?
Exposure.
Exposure.
Yeah, if you
Name
want,
and
if
shame.
you had a conflict of interest, if we expose it, you get it certified, it does damage to your reputation. That's how the Act works. The Act does not have any penalties, except for minor penalties on reporting things, and as the consequences are. To obviously, if the person who appointed her, she has resigned, but if not, for instance, one option it would have been for the government to ask her to resign, etc. If they felt the breach that we pointed out was severe enough, etc. As my colleague pointed out, we went through every single vote of hers. So these allegations that are here that she supposedly voted on issues of up to $200 million to the benefit of her, etc. As I say, we looked at every vote that she did, and she recused herself when required. At least that's the evidence, Michael, if you want to elaborate on that. But so the whole focus was the emergency votes. That's what Mr. Barrett's letter asked me to look at, and we looked at. In the process, we also looked at votes that she did with regard to incubators, and we found that she violated. She should have recused herself, not abstaining, because there's no provision for abstaining in the Act, except if you're a member of Parliament voting something on a minister. So here we find it is the whole process is essentially, if you want to put it bluntly, is we investigate, we expose, and to some extent we do damage to your reputation. That's all we can do. The person who appointed, we're talking about a reporting public office holder, whoever appointed them can decide if they want to do other actions.
Meanwhile, the
I'm
taxpayer is owed
afraid that
$10
is the
million.
time, Mr. Brock.
So this is why we like Mr. Brock, because he knows what the answers are, but he wants Canadians to know, and he wants them to know, like we always do, from the source. So the source in this case is the ethics commissioner. What's the penalty? Penalty is nothing. Now, I think Tanya's raised this before. These are antiquated laws and antiquated rules, because once upon a time, if you were found to be guilty of an ethics violation, that was regarded as really serious.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Like in your community, in your business, even your family, you'd be ostracized.
Yeah, now it just seems like, oh well, congratulations, here's your badge.
Yeah, some people collect them like Pokemon cards.
Like Trudeau. Probably has a sash going.
Girl Scout sash.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing. Okay, so like Canadians understand we're going to be like, what the hell? What happened to the $200,000? Don't you have to give it back? Now, this is where the ethics commissioner says the people that appointed her can do other things. So Champagne has it within his power to demand that she return that money. I don't think there's a chance in hell that he's going to. And this is why Canadians are so ticked off, because as people have said in the comments, if any one of us were to do something similar, we'd be arrested, charged, and thrown in jail for fraud.
Yeah, straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200,000.
Mr. Barrett, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Well, Chair, I just want to take a minute to just quickly respond to Ms. Shanahan's very animated opinions on what Parliament can and can't do. So a majority of members of the House of Commons passed a motion. And so that's important. A majority members of the House. So the Liberals want to act like they have a majority, but certainly they don't. And a majority of members saw the corruption of this Liberal government and passed this motion. And the motion calls for documents to be sent to the RCMP. And Ms. Shanahan read a letter, and I just want to share from the Parliamentary Legal Counsel a quote from his letter to the Speaker of the House of Commons. The power to send for documents is absolute and unfettered, period. It is a constitutional parliamentary privilege not limited by statute. As such, the House is not constrained by statutory obligations contained in legislation such as the Access to Information Act, the Privacy Act. I also note that the order did not contemplate that redactions be made to the document or that information be withheld. It's without limit. It's absolute. So they may not like it, and they certainly don't seem to understand it, but it's the law. And a majority of members of the House who were democratically elected made that decision. Now, we know that their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, favors a dictatorship, but that's not how our system works. Now, the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police does report to a minister in Justin Trudeau's cabinet, as per Section 5 of the RCMP Act. But the RCMP, of course, has full and final discretion on the investigations that they launch. But that's not going to stop Parliament from doing its job. We'll make the information available. The RCMP can choose to investigate or not. But much to Mr. Trudeau and his Liberal members here's chagrin, this is democracy, not a dictatorship. A majority of members of the House made a decision, and they can call independent officers of Parliament here to get them to opine on it. But it doesn't change the fact that it's legal. It's the right thing to do, especially after 9 years of the most corrupt government in history. And that's what we have with these members in that Liberal government. Commissioner, I want to move on to yet another Liberal scandal. Did you have an opportunity to review the testimony of Mr. Stephen Anderson, who's the business partner of Justin Trudeau's minister from Edmonton, Randy Boissonnault? He recently appeared at the Ethics Committee. Did you have an opportunity to review that testimony, sir?
Opportunity. I read about it in the paper. I did not watch it personally.
So there's new evidence that was presented of a business-related text messages between Mr. Anderson and a client of Mr. Boissonnault's company. Now, in these messages, Mr. Anderson refers to Mr. Boissonnault 9 times, saying there's going to be a partner call. He went on to admit that there was only one Randy at the company. And we even saw in these text messages that Randy was in Vancouver, Randy in the text messages, the same time that Justin Trudeau's minister, Randy Boissonnault, was in Vancouver at the cabinet retreat. So the evidence of Randy Boissonnault being involved is quite heavy. It's contained in the text messages that were presented at the Ethics Committee. Does this new information require a further look into the matter by you? A brief answer, if you could, sir.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't give you a brief answer, but I'll give you an answer. Okay. As you raised this issue, you raised this issue with me before. I looked into it and saw there was a reasonable grounds to start. I became convinced that on September 8th, which was the issue day in question, I'm waiting for you because I'm talking to you. I want to see, we have to make sure we both understand each other. It concerned September 8th. September 8th, there was no way Mr. Boissonnault offered to give me all the information on September 8th, his conversation, telephone conversations, emails, whatever. And we looked at all of that, and there was absolutely no way that there was contact between him and Mr. Anderson. Now this new stuff has come up, which I wasn't unaware of, and I wrote to Mr. Boissonnault again yesterday, and I said, I am concerned about these things. Now, please, and these are September 6th and 7th. So far, I know there was no communication on September 8th because you were in cabinet locker and I have all the documents. Mr. Anderson's email suggests that he was in contact with you. Would you please provide me the same information for September 6th and 7th as you've done for 8th? When I get that, I will determine whether Mr. Anderson is using the name in vain or whether there was actually conversations.
brief time left. I appreciate the answer that you're looking for more information from Mr. Boissonnault.
Yeah.
How can you be assured that you're receiving information from all of his text messages? We know that he used the app called Signal. We know he used other text messaging apps. Are you certain that you have the messages from all of the messaging applications that he used, including Signal and any other instant messaging application?
We specified in the letter that we want any means of communication electronically, it is between the two of them, whether it's, as you say, Signal or Skype or whatever you use, etc., or telephone contact. Once I get that information, I will be able to exercise my judgment, say, as a reasonable grounds to suspect that there was an involvement of Mr. Boissonnault in this, and therefore an investigation is launched, or really his name is being used in vain by Mr. Anderson in order to give extra credibility to his emails.
Ethics Commissioner thinks Randy lied. That's what I get from that.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Because otherwise, why is the Ethics Commissioner reading that and saying, sends an email to Randy. Randy, I think you better give me some communication records from September 6th and 7th, not just September 8th, please.
Well, because here's the procedure of what happens. And this happens every new parliament. And members are also supposed to disclose if they make any new acquisitions, anything that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. So when a new parliament starts, the members disclose all of their companies, their holdings, just pretty much anything and everything financial, and they give it to the ethics commissioner. And the ethics commissioner looks over it and goes, yeah, that's fine. No, that's not fine. Here's how you have to comply. And it goes on from there. But if a member does not disclose, then they're breaking the ethics laws.
Well, if he does not disclose, if he continues operating his company, even if he did disclose.
Or if the ethics commissioner says, okay, you have to do X, Y, Z in order to be compliant, and then that MP doesn't do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Then they're in a breach of ethics.
Yeah, then that's a problem. That's a big problem. And it sounds like Randy's problems are just getting started. He thought he was in the clear with that clean bill of health on that September 8th review by the ethics commissioner, but thanks to your buddy Mr. Anderson, I don't think this is going to go well for you, Randy, not Randy.